Thank you for joining us. Hardly a day goes by where you don't turn on the news or pick up the paper and see something involving the role of organized labor. Super important to everything that goes on in our lives, and that's why we're always happy to sit down and talk with the president of the Massachusetts AFL-CIO, Chrissy Lynch, who will mark 2 years as president of that organization this fall. Madam President, welcome. Good to have you.
Nice to see you, John. Thanks for having me.
So you were last here last September in the heat of the presidential race. And we talked about the decision by the head of the Teamsters Union, Sean O'Brien. By the way, the Teamsters are not part of the AFL-CIO, correct? To speak at the Republican National Committee and ultimately, or convention rather, and ultimately they did not endorse in the Harris-Biden race. You were very articulate in your criticism of those decisions and in your admonition to union members to put aside whatever differences they had with the Democrats and support the Democratic ticket. In hindsight, do you feel vindicated?
Look, I think that the speech that Sean gave to the Republican National Convention was spot on. I think it was given to a party whose platform actually exudes some of the criticism of our economy that he gave to them. But look, I think that this election showed that I don't think either party is really working for the working class in a way that it should be. I think a lot of union members saw, and a lot of working class people in general saw, one party defending a status quo that hasn't been working for them, and one party wanted to blow up the status quo. And it's not a good place for, I think, our democracy to be in. And for working class people who are concerned about their health care and their wages and how they're going to afford their groceries and their housing, you know, it's a bad place for us to be.
Would labor be better off now if Kamala Harris were president?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, yeah, for sure. I still think that our endorsement of Kamala Harris was the right one. I understand we are democratic unions, and each union has the democratic right through conversations with their own members to endorse or not endorse whoever they want. But look, the platform of what Kamala Harris stood for versus what Donald Trump and Project 2025 stood for, there's a very stark difference. We are already over 40% through with Project 2025. This is something that Donald Trump distanced himself during the election. We are now 7 months into his I guess, second term, and he is over 40% through with it.
From your perspective as a labor leader, what's the scariest part of that?
All of it is scary. I mean, from a labor leader and as a parent, he has made it a mission to disrupt the Department of Education. He is chipping away at workers' rights. He is absolutely decimating our public servants who aren't politicians or ideologues. They are there because they serve our veterans. They send out Social Security checks. They inspect our foods. They monitor air traffic safety, and he is absolutely taking a sledgehammer to all of the things that are bedrock to our country.
Well, what about no taxes on tips? What about tariffs that are supposedly aimed at onshoring jobs?
Well, look, relative to the no tax on tips, if you peel back the layers, that's a very small term, small dollar fix. The tax cuts for billionaires who are doing just fine are permanent. The tax cuts for low and middle income people who rely on tips expires in a couple years. So I think we can really see the distraction he was trying to give. You know, relative to the tariffs, I would say I think he tapped into something, which is people want stuff made and bought in America. I think the free trade policies of the 90s, which both parties supported without labor standards, are feeding into what we have now, which is people want stuff made in America. I think his sledgehammer approach to tariffs is misguided, but I do think we should be figuring out how to make more things in America.
All right. On that note, let's take our break, and when we return, we'll focus a little bit more on local labor issues with the president of the Massachusetts AFL-CIO, Chrissy Lynch. So please stay with us. Welcome back to our conversation with the president of the Massachusetts AFL-CIO, Chrissy Lynch. So a couple of unions have been making a lot of news around here lately. The Teamsters, which I mentioned, are not a part of the AFL-CIO, with the garbage workers strike and the pushback on the driverless cars coming into the city of Boston. And also the Mass Teachers Association, also a standalone union, but they operate under the umbrella of the NEA, and I believe there's some affiliation at the national level.
In here, in Massachusetts.
So in both cases, you know, the teachers last spring, there were some high-profile, controversial, and illegal strikes that went on. We got the garbage workers strike with the Teamsters. There's been some analysis that the number of strikes is up. Mm-hmm. Why, and does that in any way give you pause?
Look, I think that working people across the board are feeling fed up with an economy that doesn't work for them. And what the Teamsters are doing, who they're not affiliated with us, but we talk to them a lot and we work together very closely and on a lot of things. And the fight they have with Republic, which is a national corporation making record profits, and I really applaud that they are not afraid to stand up to these corporate giants and fight for what is right. It's the same with Local 26 and the fight they're having over there at Fenway Park right now. They were out this past weekend. And look, these fights, whether you're union or not, the fight that the Fenway workers are having with Unite Here Local 26, it's about raising wages that will raise wages for the entire industry, whether you're union or not. It's also about the role of technology. Whether it's rapidly evolving AI and some of the automation that might result in that, no matter what sector you're in, whether it's driving, whether it's retail or service or a white collar or blue collar job, it is going to be impacted in some way. And we as labor organizations are taking that really seriously. We are trying to figure out how do we dig in on the good parts, but we can't dig in on those unless we create safeguards for the really dangerous parts of some of this technology.
What about teacher strikes? Those are not popular with a lot of the public, and they're illegal. The MTA hasn't decided yet, I guess, but there's been all sorts of speculation they're going to go ahead with a ballot question to make us one of the few states in the country that allows teacher strikes. Do you think they should allow them?
Look, I do. And I actually think, I'm not sure what their plans are with the ballot, but I can tell you that what I have seen in what they've proposed, I actually think would be a deterrent to more strikes. I say this as a proud labor leader and as a parent of 2 kids in public schools. The working conditions of these teachers are the learning conditions of my kids and all of our kids. And when over 90% of educators in a school district choose to go on strike, something's going to be really, really wrong in those school districts. And right now you've got school committees which too often drag out negotiations because they know that they can. We actually see this as a potential way to avert strikes, which of course we want to avoid.
But city and town officials say they're up against it financially. These are not big mega corporations with executives sitting on million-dollar salaries.
That's true, but I also think that as cities and towns and as a state, and frankly, as a nation, we should be looking at where are we investing our money. These are our kids, the next generation of our economy that's being educated, and you have people making poverty wages in these schools.
I'm sorry, we're running a little short on time, but given the cutbacks in federal aid, the potential impact on our economy, do you think new taxes need to be on the table in Beacon Hill?
I do, for the people who can most afford to pay, which is corporations like Amazon, who hide money overseas and offshore.
Wish we had more time, but the welcome mat is out. We'll look forward to having you back here in a few months' time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. Chrissy Lynch, president of the Massachusetts AFL-CIO. That's our time. Now, back to my colleagues for more WBZ News.